Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're continuing learning Likuti Torah in order to, as the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, bring Mashiach. This is one of the books that's going to bring Mashiach. So what are we learning about today? We're learning about God. We're learning about God. But first of all, let's give charity. Charity saves from death. Charity saves from all bad things, and it brings all good things. It'll bring the Gula. In Yisrael, Megalim Ela B'Tzedakah. Charity. Remember to give, be generous, be positive. Be positive. And now, by the way, we're starting how do you say, a new program, which is a program in honor of my grandson who tragically died because he was bullied. It's a whole long process, but it was because he was bullied in school. And it seems that he had some sort of a very minor heart problem or whatever, and it broke his heart. Anyway, whatever it was, he was an expert. My grandson, I have a picture of him. He was an expert at praising people. It's saying good things about people. It's called machma, flattering. Not a nice word, flatter. Flattery is usually bad, but he was good at just saying positive things about people. Like, usually people can see something bad about, especially kids. You got a big nose, you have a cleft chin, you have you're skinny, you're fat, you're this. The kids make fun of each other. But he had this quality that he used to say good things about people in front of them. In Hebrew, it's called machmaot. So my son, who was his father, so we decided that we're going to make up a project, a mivtza, a mission, whatever you want to call it, to everyone should say good things. Send a friend a good word, a person you don't know, say good morning, say you look good today, you must be a smart person, so you're a good person, I can see from your face, anything good to say about a person, and to a person to encouraging words. So that's an encouraging word year. That's what I'm trying to make this year. And it's pretty much working in Hebrew. In Israel, a lot of people are grabbing on to do a good thing, say something good about someone else. Machmaot, praise word. I don't know what's a good word for it in Hebrew. I have to look it up. Okay, here we go. Ready? Yes. So yesterday, what did we learn? That the name of God is inside of every Jew. The name of God. Every human being is made by God, and every human being is made in the image of God. That's what it says in the Torah. God said it to Noah. That's the image of God, the form of God, whatever. So, but the name of God, so to speak, the essence, and there's a lot of names of God. But the essence name of God, which is Yud and then Hey, Vav Hey, that's what the Jewish people received at Mount Sinai. And that's also what we have to meditate on every day, at least twice a day, when we say Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael is the motto of the Jewish people. So from this sentence, Shema Yisrael, we understand that it's a commandment to try to understand God, at least enough to come to love him. Genuine love. So in order to really love someone or something, you have to see something good in them, and it has to be relevant to you, right? It has to be relevant to you. You love to eat, what is pistachio ice cream? You must love it because it tastes good to you. You see something good in it. People love money because it makes them feel good. Love means that you see something good. That's how can you love God? What's there to love about God? So the Rebbe says you have to think about it. You have to think about it. It's not like you just can't, it's an automatic experience. It's an experience that you have to think about. You have to realize what's happening. So first of all, to realize that God is creating us and that God loves us and that He's creating us from love and that God gives us life. That God gives us eyes, ears, mouth constantly, every moment. That the world, in fact, does not exist without God creating it all the time. So God comes out to be very good. Says the Rebbe that that's what makes every Jew has this love intrinsically embedded in their soul. That's what happened in Mount Sinai when they got the Torah. That's the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. God's name has 4 letters in it. Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and Hey. But you're not supposed to say that word. You're not supposed to say it. And you pronounce it in a different way. And you're not supposed to say that either, unless you're praying or saying in Hebrew. Because it's God's name. God is not a thing. If you give him a regular name like anyone else, don't think that the name means that God is a thing, like, he's a big angel or he's a big spirit or something. It's not. Right? God is not like the Wizard of Oz or something sitting behind these veils and you can't see him, but really it's just, just a thing, a really big thing, really big, huge, infinitely big angel or something like that. It's not so. God creates infinity. I think we talked about that before. Now there's this whole big thing. Was there a big bang? Did God really create the world? Right? Was there God before the world? But that's a question. Okay, good. But even those people that say that there's a big bang, so where did the big bang come from? In what? Where it was in a vacuum. Where did the vacuum come from? Where did empty space come from? Okay, but that's not the question. How it began. The question is how it is now. Who's creating us now? And now that Judaism says that our God cares about everybody. Science doesn't postulate, even the religious scientists don't postulate a God like that. That for sure you can't prove. God cares about everything. But how can you prove it in your heart? You can sense in your heart that really there is God and that God cares and that God creates us. God creates us. God personally himself. Right? All the things that the other religions attribute to their gods or their powers or their forces or whatever, it's true about God. God cares. God creates it. So when you start thinking about that, so that's the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei. I'm just going over what we learned yesterday. The letters Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. That's the name of God. So Yud, says the Rebbe, that's the level of Chachma. Chachma means that you can't possibly understand God, that God is above all creation, above all being. He creates all being. He creates the spiritual. He creates everything is totally incomprehensible, right? This is what's called Eitan. This is the power, the identity of the Jewish people, the inner identity, which is totally unexplainable, incomparable. There's no way, undefinable. That's the letter Yud of the name of God. Then there's the letter Hey of God's name inside of every Jew. That's the ability to think about God, to understand what God is. That brings you to love God, etc. So thinking about God, total surrender to God, that we are really nothing. That's the letter Yud. That's true essence of Jewish identity. The letter Hey of God, that's also part of Jewish identity, that you can think about God. You can contemplate about God. You can come to appreciate God. That's what we got up to yesterday. Okay, now that's the first 2 letters of Yud and Hey of God's name. So. I don't exactly remember what we got up to. I think we got up to here. Here. Yeah. Okay, so it says the letter Yud, that is, here we got it this way. The letter Yud, that is the inner feeling of self-sacrifice to God, which is present in every single Jew, above intellect, above understanding, against understanding, the opposite of understanding in a way. It negates, it's a total willingness to be surrendered totally to God. The feeling that I am really nothing and God is creating me all the time from absolutely nothing. Totally above any comprehension. There's no comprehension. There's no example that you can find in the world of something being created from nothing. Nothing. Even more, I mean, the nothing itself is so to speak a creation. So what does it mean? Something from nothing. What is nothing? You can't find nothing. But that's the letter Yud. That God is creating all being. I am really nothing. I am a big miracle. Then there's that's this feeling of the oneness of God. Then after that, there's understanding, that feeling. bringing that feeling into our mind, trying to comprehend it. And that's what it says. A lot of times it brings into Chassidut the example that a chachma without bina, and there's the feeling of surrender to God without understanding, without trying to understand. So it can come to be absurd that you can have a thief. It says in the Talmud that a thief, before he goes to steal, prays to God for success. He's going against God, but he believes in God. How can it be? Because he believes in God. He has the letter Yud. He totally believes in God, but it doesn't have any implications. That's the letter Hey. It doesn't really manifest itself in any sort of a logical way. It's just above understanding. So therefore, he can do illogical things and still totally believe in God. That's the letter Yud. The letter Hey is understanding. Trying to understand God. What are the implications of this? That God exists, that God creates everything. How can it possibly be? It makes no sense. How does he create everything? That's the ideas of Chassidut, especially. That's Chachma and Bina. That's Bina. So Chachma, that's life. That's life which is above understanding. And Bina, that is understanding. That's comprehension. That's, if you want to call it, consciousness and intelligence, if you want to say. Yud is pure conscience, just being conscious that there is God, not understanding. And understanding, that's the letter Hey. So he says, Shenakuda says there's what's called the Nakuda Behechal. Because there is no thought that can possibly grasp what God is. There is no thought that can possibly grasp what God is. But obviously, from what we're saying, God is the most important, what they want to call it, concept or whatever that there is in the world. The God is creating the whole world. He's creating the whole world every single instant. And we have no way possibly of understanding it. It says, because no thought can grasp God. Ki'im ha'ora, just like a little ray of godliness, from this level of the Chachma. That's why Chachma is like the smallest letter. That's Chachma. What about Bina? Bina means you take this feeling that you have, that I'm a miracle. I'm being created every second from nothing. I don't understand it. You try to understand it. Hitbonanut, contemplation, thinking about this. In other words, you're trying to solve a problem. What's the problem? God is creating it every moment, and I don't understand how that's possible. Right? Why don't I feel God is creating me every moment? Why don't I feel that God is all that there really is? Why don't I feel this? That's called hitbonanut. That's a big problem. You have to think about it. Then you start understanding how God conceals himself, and he conceals his light, and there's different levels of creation, concealment. Hari machshava tafisa. Then your thoughts can grasp. Hari machshava tafisa bakul. Then your thoughts can grasp godliness. That's the books of Kabbalah and things like that. So when you learn Chassidut, it's the same thing. You learn Chassidut, you're understanding God, you're coming to love God. But you have to understand that which we understand is just a little tiny ray of reality that God allows us to grab onto. But when we learn about God, basically we have absolutely no idea what we're learning about. But on the other hand, it's the most real topic there can be. God's creating everything. Nevertheless, Chachma, even though that Bina, understanding, that's the human aspect, we understand, but what enlivens it is, Shenikra Nakuda Behechal, it's called the point inside of the palace. Like the point inside of the palace. I don't know if this is a good example, but I'm giving the example. Let's say mathematics without the number one. Can you imagine mathematics? There's no such thing as number one in mathematics, right? Mathematics, there's only 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, there can't be such a thing like that. There has to be one. See, but you say, well, that one is not mathematics. That's not mathematics, the number one. Right? You have to be able to do something with it. You have to do something with it. So with this one, it's a bad example I'm giving, but it's like godliness about one. The reason it's a bad example is because one is just one of the numbers. And after you put two ones together, you get two. You can't put two gods together. But the idea is that God is totally beyond comprehension. But on the other hand, God exists. And that's the life. That's what really enlivens us. So it says that a person I think I told you about this before, but there was one rabbi. In fact, there was a rabbi in Chabad, and he understood fantastically the ideas of Chassidut and the ideas of this, but it didn't really inspire him to do the commandments. He could understand things and he got excited about it, the ideas, and he could pray for hours and everything like that. But he didn't really truly believe that God is above understanding. As a result, he didn't do the commandments, and he was what we call an apostate. It was what we call, oh, nobody's going to beat him up or punish him. But the fact was, is it was exactly the opposite of what it was. The story of Yerovam ben Nevat in the Torah, that he was a genius. Like there's no genius, maybe in the history of Judaism, like him. Right, a genius, and he ended up, making 2 golden calves, and he was the king of the 10 tribes of Israel, because he didn't have that little point of surrender, the point that God is essentially totally incomprehensible. God is not mine, I'm His. It says there's no thought that can grab, but understanding God, that's the letter Hey, Bina. Then there is thought you can understand. Nevertheless, Chachma is the life inside of it. Shanakuda, that little point of wisdom, that little yud, mechaya et ha'echel, that enlivens what's called the palace. The palace is understanding, bina. She'im ein nakuda, if there's no little point, then there's no understanding. I mean, God is creating everything. He's creating my understanding as well. Then if there's no little point, then there's ein ha'echel mishamish klum, then the palace is like nothing. It's like a palace without a king. Doesn't mean it's just like a relic. The same thing of Judaism without Chachma. Chachma is this point of insanity, of self-sacrifice to God. The whole thing is just empty. It's just a bunch of empty rituals. But if all you have is this tremendous desire and surrender to God, if there's no palace, then there's nothing. The king can't just be wandering around in the streets with no clothes on. Right? There's no, the king is not a king. So you can't have Bina without Chachma. You can't have Chachma without Bina. Chachma is the life force, and Bina is understanding. So both of them need one the other. Understanding without life force is dead. Life without understanding is totally impractical. It's not a... Therefore, there has to be both of them together. That's called 2 friends that never separate. Below, just like they are above. In other words, Chachma has to be put into Bina, understanding, and Bina has to be put into surrender. That's within understanding. Okay, that's the first 2 letters of God's name. What about the last 2 letters of God's name? Vav, Hey. Bechin is Vav, the letter of the Vav of God's name. This is what's called Nachal Eitan. We said that the Yud is Eitan. Let me make this bigger here. Overdid it. Now the last 2 letters of God's name, Vav. Vav of the name of God, that's drawing down. That's called the river, Nachal Eitan. It's called the river of Eitan. Shemechinat Eitan, from this level of Eitan that we talked about, which was Chachma and Bina, more exactly Chachma, and comes down, a Nachal comes down a river. Now this is within each one of us. First you have a little inkling that God exists. That's the letter Yud. Then you try to understand this. You contemplate in it. Does God really exist? What does it mean that God exists? How does God hide over himself? How great God is. God creates the angels. God creates this. From this understanding, this intuition, chachma, and understanding, which is bina, then it comes into your emotions. It's drawn, that's the letter vav. That's the emotions in your heart. You start to love God. That's divided. That's the emotions can be categorized into 6 categories: love, fear, purpose, beauty. So hu bechinas vav, that's the letter vav. And then when you start to think about godliness, then you transform your emotions to holiness. Instead of getting excited about money and getting excited about this, so you deal with money, but what you're really excited about is God. Therefore, you're not going to do anything with your money that God doesn't want you to do. Afterwards, the bechin is hey acharona. After this, the letter hey acharona. That's machshava dibur maisa. That's thought, speech, and action. So first of all, the letter Vav, that's emotions. When you have the proper inspiration about God, that's the letter Yud, and the proper understanding of God, then the next step is to bring it into your emotions, to actually change your emotions so you come to really love God and really fear God and not love the world and fear the world. You transform your emotions. Why the letter Vav is emotions? First of all, it comes down. It's from above to below. And secondly, there's 6 emotions. 6 emotions. That's where the world was created in 6 days. And the last day, Shabbat, the rest, the Jews Shabbat. And that's the letter Hey. The letter Hey, that comes into the actual physical world. That's thought, speech, and action. The letter Hey is 3 lines, right? Thought is the top line, speech is the right side, and action is the left line, which is separated. That's because that corresponds to the 3 lines of the letter Hey, Sheba Hey, which is in the letter Hey. And this is the last Hey of God's name. And this is action in the world. Torah Shebal Peh. This is what's called the oral Torah, Malchut Karina law. This is called the king. The actual manifestation of God in the world is through the Talmud. The Gadol Talmud, great is learning Talmud, Shemevi Le Maiset, brings to action, which action is certainly the letter Hey of God's name. So God is not what you think He is. God is much greater than what you think He is. That's represented by the first letter of God's name, Yud. Totally incomprehensible, not understandable. And to show you how not understandable God is, how God is nothing like what you thought, is that's why we have the Talmud, because the manifestation of God in the world is the Talmud. You thought God would be manifested in the world as somebody who rolls his eyes and walks on water or something like that. That's not so. That's not so. What the true manifestation of God in the world, that is the Torah. What you do, what you say, what you think, that's the Talmud. Tells you what to do and say and think. So that's the full name of God, which is inside of every single Jew. Why are we talking about this? Because the first sentence of our Torah, let's go back here. We're explaining the first sentence of our here. Ra'eh, see. Where is this? No. Ra'eh, see. I am putting in front of you, means inside of you, a blessing and a curse. What am I putting inside of you? This is right before the Jews went into the land of Israel. Moses is saying that God is activating what He put inside of you in Mount Sinai, the name of God. What He put inside of you when you say Shema Yisrael every day. The name of God. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Okay, let's go. Yes. It goes down to here. 1 second. 1 minute. Here it is. And all of these levels, all of this is commentary by the Rebbe's son and his grandson. Commentary, I think mostly from his grandson, which is very interesting. But let's go. Just by the way, I'm going to say this again. There will not be any classes on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week, and Sunday and Monday of next week. Won't be any classes. I'm going to Lubavitch. We're going to know my city, my town. I'll try to figure out maybe some way to put up classes. We'll see. But there won't be any classes one-on-one, but almost everybody watches the classes now. Thank God there's a lot of people that watch it on YouTube. But in any case, live classes there won't be. Okay, here we go. These levels, we said, of a Yud, which are hinted at in the name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud is Chochmah, the general surrender to God. Hey is understanding God. Vav is the emotions about God. And that's the Vav. And then the last Hey, that's action, speech, and thought about God, that's the Torah. This is the idea of receiving the Torah. When God said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, when God said, I am God, your God, that's what the rabbi said in Mount Sinai, Gabi over Uber Bebetanimo. It says that a fetus, a Jewish fetus, in the stomach, in the womb of his mother, Ner Daluk al Rosho, there is a, this is how the Tanya starts off, by the way, also. There is a flame lit on the head of the fetus, the soul. Malamdim oto kol Torah, and he is taught all of the Torah. And this says that the child, before he comes out, is he's given a little hit here, and it forgets all the Torah. And there were some Jews that they didn't have that hit. They said that the Rebbe of Ruzhin was one of those people. He knew the whole Torah, and they never saw him learn. Maybe he went over it in his mind. Near the Luke, so it says there's a flame, which is a lamp, which is lit on his head, and he is taught all of the Torah. Near the Luke, a flame which is on the head. This is the letter Yud. Malamdimoto, he is taught all of the Torah. That's the first. is taught. That's the first Hey. Oto, him. That's the Vav, and all of the Torah. That's the letter Hey, the last Hey, which is in the name of God. Lomar lachar, to say Shekol and Yan, that this whole idea and all of these levels we talked about of the name of God, from the Yud until the Hey, a child is taught in order liot lo achar shaledo, until after he is born, but seito lavir, and going on to the world, yoter benakal, easier to fisa beklita bechinot elu, these levels, amocho, in his brain and in his heart, that seit mihelam elagiloi, to come from what's concealed to be revealed. Because God puts us in the world in order to work. We're here to fix up the world, and the only way to fix up the world is through the Torah. Those people who can learn the Torah, they have to learn. Those people that cannot learn the Torah, for whatever reason it is, they haven't got time, at least do the commandments. You have to learn a little bit. What is it that even inspires us and gives us the idea that this is an option, that this is the way to fix up the world, right? All these people think, no, communism is the way to fix up the world, and this religion is the way to fix up the world, and this. Other people will say, no, you got to get out of the world. You can't fix up the world. All you can do is go to heaven, forget about the world. It says, no, it's not so. This physical world is more important than heaven, and the only way to really show this, to demonstrate how important this world is and the holiness of this world, is through the Torah. Where'd you get this idea from? It says that every Jewish child, before he is born, he is taught the whole entire Torah. And then he's made to forget it. But the idea is that he experienced it. For a short amount of time, he was rich. It's not going to be a new thing to him, the Torah. But the rabbis say, Shezman Agalus, in the time of exile, Ein Hashem Shalem, the name of God is not complete. Here we learn so beautifully about the name of God and the essence of the Jewish soul, etc. It says, in the time of exile, God's name is not complete. Hainu, Sha'otiot, that these two letters, last two letters of Vav, emotions about God and thinking about God, according to the Torah, loving God, fearing God, being emotional, intimate, personal with God, a personal connection with God, and doing what God says, saying what God says, is separate from the first two letters of Yud K. What does that mean? Avodat Hashem, the service of God, who is Afal, even though you think about God and you deepen your mind into greatness of God and you learn Chassidut and all these ideas, and you deepen your mind very deeply in a way which is above understanding, like the letter Yud, we said, and you are aware I am a Jew, and a Jew is the essence of the reality of what reality is, and it's above understanding. And I think about it, but the Yud K, your understanding and your surrender to God, the Yud is a surrender, and Hey is the understanding of God. It stops there. It doesn't come into your heart. To transform your emotions into actually loving and fearing God. You love and fear the world. The Rish Pe'esh, to have a fiery, flaming love of God alone. I know Besivat. Why? Because Galut. we are now in exile. What does it mean we're in exile? That we are concerned with the physical world. And this says, you must circumcise the foreskin of your heart. In other words, let's say a simple way, right? Well, a simple thing. And maybe you can give maybe the best example. The Moroccan Jews, the Yemenite Jews, right? When they were in Morocco, when they were in Yemen, right, the Jews, there was no such thing as a religious Jew. Every Jew just did all the Torah and the commandments. Every Jew did. There was no such thing, because there was no such thing as a non-religious Jew. There was just a Jew. A Jew believed in God. A Jew kept Shabbos. A Jew just did what a Jew does, right? And they were very big righteous people, big tzaddikim, and everybody respected them. And right, the world had almost no effect on these people. Almost. I mean, there's always people that are a little bit more angry and things like that. But generally speaking, God was a very big reality in their life, in this world. Not talking about going to heaven. And then when they brought them to Israel, to the land of Israel, and they saw that nobody was religious, nobody cared. So all of a sudden, the main thing in their life was not God. God wasn't practical. It was the world. And so is the soul. So is every single soul. Every single soul, like it says, before it comes into the world, it's taught the whole entire Torah. It's excited about God. And then it gets born, and all of a sudden, wow, it's cold and it's alone, and it has trouble breathing. You have to hit it on the back, right? So that it breathes, and then it's hungry, right? And it's helpless. All of a sudden, the world is God. The world is dominant. That's all we care about is the world. How is God going to help me now, right? He needs to. If he doesn't get some milk, he's going to die. Even though, if you think about it, it's a pretty big miracle that children come out. I mean, it's not just to be taken for granted, right? The children come out and that they're healthy, that they're born at all. It's a big miracle. People do all sorts of things to have children move. On that it says, why don't we feel godliness? Why is it that the world is so dominant in this world? Here the Rebbe explains so beautifully what our soul is and that our true identity is and what the truth is. But you come into the world and all of a sudden the world, it becomes God and there's no God. Or even if you think about God, you don't get excited about it. That's a topic. It's a religious topic. You can write a book about it. Maybe when you're in the synagogue, you get excited a little bit. But when you're in the world, that's what's really real, right? You're worried about your bank account. You're worried about what people say about you. That's the nature of things. Why? Because we have a foreskin over our heart. A foreskin. It covers over our heart. Circumcise your heart. Now, of course, there's a regular foreskin, which is over the physical foreskin, which that's physical. But it says in the Torah that you have to circumcise your heart. There's another place in the Torah where it says that God will circumcise your heart. Okay, we're going to get that. Let's explain it. It is written, that God will circumcise your heart. So it says you should circumcise your heart, the foreskin of your heart. And then it says that God will circumcise your heart. Who's going to do the work over here? If God's going to do it, then what do I have to do it for? And if I'm going to do it, then why does it say in the Torah that God is going to do it? What does it even mean? God is going to circumcise my heart. What's covering over my heart? My egotism. You're going to take away my egotism? I'm not going to be a human being. I'm going to be a zombie, right? It says, listen, Torah, we have to understand. The Mashmat says that this circumcision will come from God alone. Hari Ne'amar, it says Maltem, but on the other hand, it says that you have to do it. So who's doing it? Who's doing the circumcision? Okay, just as a small explanation, every Jew has two Jews inside of him. One of them is a natural Jew that God is optional or maybe not even existent at all. The Jew just says, I'm a Jew. I'm an atheist Jew. I don't believe in God, but I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. In other words, what does that mean? It means that he doesn't know anything about God, doesn't care anything about God, right? That's what we call a normal Jew. He gets along in the world, without God, totally. No connection whatsoever. Then there's a whole different personality. There's a Jew which is inspired not by the world, He's inspired by God. But what? God is inspired by the world. God cares about the world. The world is very important to God. So it means that we start looking at the world from God's point of view. God wants us to be rich, but he wants us to use the money the way that we should possess the money, not the money possesses us. Money doesn't drive us crazy. God drives us crazy, but the money not. Right? Our riches and things, but we should have riches. We shouldn't live in the desert, whatever. So that's what it means when we're circumcised, when our heart is circumcised, it means that the world doesn't rule over us. We're not covered over by our own ego, by the low self. It says, how does this mean? What does it mean? How do we do this? Is like this level, which is called foreskin, it covers over the heart. Desires, physical things, hamonim, which prevent, umafsikim, and they separate between the letter yud-hey and the letter vav-hey. Natural. That there won't be any revealed love. It only depends on tshuva. We have to return to God. Like it says, it says that your sins, your selfishness, that's what separates between you and God. So get rid of that selfishness. Return to your true identity. That's called tshuva. In English, it's transformed as repentance, but it just really means return to who you really are. It says, V'nargan mafrid aluf. It says that like arguments, so what is this? Arguments separate even the king. It's a sentence in Mishlei. As soon as there's contention, there's arguments, etc. The world goes against God. As soon as you do that separation, then you feel separate. He's galus, but to reveal the essence of love, there's two types of love. There's external heart, and there's the inside of the heart. Loving God, there's two ways to love God. One is the inside of your heart. That's only Mashiach is going to reveal. And then there's the outside of your heart, to love God. That you reveal your love for God so much that you're totally surrendered to God. You won't even feel the love. It'll be the essence of your soul. Just like a person normally doesn't feel himself, right? You feel yourself. Right? How are you feeling today? You say, oh, thank God, I'm feeling okay, right? How is your hand? What something's wrong with my hand? You don't feel your hand because it's totally surrendered to your body. It's totally surrendered. That's loving God. That's what it's. We're like a hand of God. You don't feel yourself. You just act properly the way you're supposed to, right? Without egotism, the world will get along really, really fine. Without egotism, it doesn't mean we're not talking about communism where nobody has any sort of what is it called? I forgot the word. Desire to make progress or be different. And what's the word for it? There's a good word. Wait, forgot the word. All right. People will have what is called ingenuity, intention. There's a word that I wanted to have. I can't think of the word. All right, I'll remember it later. It doesn't mean it'll wipe out all your individuality, right? All of your individuality. Not so. It won't wipe out exactly. It'll reveal who your true individuality really is. So come to love things that are really worth loving. That's what's called bittul. Like it's like an example, for instance, a person, if it's important to him, something really, really important. Some people are that way with money. Some people with their family. Shalom mi'atzmuto, from his essence, the seichel v'chayav talumbo, that your mind and your whole heart depend on it. That's the level of nachal eitan. This is the level of nachal eitan, which in the future will be revealed to every Jew. The external of the heart means you love God for reasons. The inside of the heart means you automatically have this intense love of God, just like you love yourself, but even more because God creates yourself. And this level will be revealed in the future. This is what Mashiach will reveal. This is Mashiach al-Atid in the future. That's Eitan, I will give. Eitan, I will give. Nachal Eitan. This is going to be drawn down to every single Jew in the future, revealed. Sha'ati lavo in the future, Kativ, it says, Im yeni dechacha katzei shamayim, like it says, we'll learn this in the Torah. It says, if you will be scattered to the ends of the heavens, God said, I will gather you together. It's a sentence over here in Deuteronomy. I will bring you all together. You'll get a benefit even more than your forefathers. It'll be a higher and higher level, more than your forefathers. This is the what is it? Wait a second. The Rebbe brings it in a mimer. There's a sentence: Mi yale lanu hashamayma. Mi yale. It says the Torah is not in heaven that will say who will go up for us into heaven. Mi yale lanu hashamayma. The first letters are mila, circumcision, and the last letters are God's name. Mi is yud, yale hey, etc. So this circumcision is higher than the name of God. It's talking about the upper name of God. The upper name of God. So this is revelation of the upper name of God inside of us. This God is going to do himself. So the circumcision we have to do on our own. That means we have to think about God. We have to contemplate God. We have to get excited about God. We have to love God. But that's only the external part of our heart. That depends on our understanding. We can only love God as much as we understand. But when Mashiach comes, it's going to be revealed the inner essence of our love to God. God is going to do the circumcision. That's going to be even greater than the circumcision that Abraham made, for instance, even more than the fathers, a type of love of God, which is even greater than the love we have for ourselves now. Because behold, my servant, Yoram v'nisa b'govamod, is very, very high. The Mashiach, this is a sentence in Isaiah, that Mashiach is going to be even higher than Abraham. It says, that's what it means when it says that God will circumcise your heart. So what have we been talking about now? We've been talking about the name of God, which is inside of the soul of every Jew, which is in fact the soul of every Jew. And this name of God is awareness of God in the soul of every Jew. Yud means an awareness of God, which is totally above understanding, total surrender to the essence of God above understanding. Hey means to understand God. Vav means to get emotional about God. And the last hey is talking about Torah and the commandments to bring it into the world. It says there's two levels of this love of God, the name of God. One of them we can only reveal now by circumcising ourselves. We have to think about God and work on ourselves in order to change ourselves, that God should be the motivating factor in our lives. And then there's going to be a higher circumcision that God is going to do himself. And that's what it says. It doesn't say, V'az kativ, it says, Mal Hashem et orlat elokecha et lavavecha. Then it says that God will circumcise your heart. It doesn't say he'll circumcise the foreskin of your heart. The foreskin of your heart, you remove yourself. In the future, it says God will circumcise your heart itself. Your heart itself will be changed. In other words, your emotions, your identity, you'll reveal the true Jewish identity that you have. I know that all this idea of the external heart, that you love God for reasons, the external heart, that you have reasons for loving God, rather will be revealed God with above all reason, above all logic. Pure truth will be revealed, and our lives will be according to pure love of God, the creator of the universe, truth in every aspect of the world. No one is going to think about going to heaven. It won't even be a topic of interest. The only people we only think about, how can I make this world even higher than heaven? That's going to be the circumcision that God is going to make. This is the Rebbe. That's the whole idea of when we say Kaddish. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mavorach, may your great name be blessed and revealed in this world. When we do circumcise our hearts, and when then the circumcise our hearts, then that makes more of a revelation, not just in us, but in the world. That God's name itself, because God reacts to what we do. And this is what we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow.